Yes, so quiz.
Well,
Okay.
anyway, uh,
Okay, we're gonna start now.
okay. Is it time to begin to start?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna go. Anyway, when you do these kinds of things, you gotta laugh a little bit. The Indian people always joke. I gotta tell you, when I was getting ready to come over here tonight, Linda says, check me all over, make sure my medallion was right. She said the last thing she said, cut the hair in your nose. So anyway, Linda, I know you're gonna give me hell when I get home, but I had to say that. Well, I'm kind of honored to be able to share with people how it was for me growing up. Came from a good family, and Redcliffe was a good place to grow up in. When I was young, now I'm 78 years old, so I can remember probably back 70 years, to the time I was 8, and it was a different world here. I and Joe Brissette some time back, we made a little chart of all the homes that were in Redcliffe when we were young. And then we made another one when the tribal council invited us out to Clayton's restaurant of all the changes that were made. And the first map we came up with, there was like 326 people living in Redcliffe at that time. We could tell you every home, like on Blueberry Road, there was 11 houses on Blueberry Road, up from the casino up to Boyd's house. There were 11 homes. Now there's hundreds of homes. So you can imagine the impact that the increase in population had on us. But when we were young, everybody visited. You didn't have TV, we didn't have computer, we didn't have Facebook, those phones. Everybody visited. Families visited. It was good time. You learned a lot of stuff from visiting. Families were closer together. You your family was involved in your upbringing, your uncles and your aunts. It was different. Everybody worked. There was no such thing as going to the restaurant and wondering who was going to come and buy your hamburger. You cooked at home. When it was time to work, all the kids worked along with the parents, starting with strawberries in the spring, raspberries next. There were beans to be picked on farms. There was a cannery in Bayfield that canned beans. Every little farmer that was in Bayfield at the time, if you weren't growing strawberries and raspberries, you had an extra crop there, which was beans. That was everybody's livelihood, your cash crop. We all picked beans, we picked apples, we picked strawberries, we picked raspberries. There was even rhubarb to be cut at Bethel's. That's all pretty much gone now. I think there's 2 farmers, Brenda Erickson and Fred Erickson, that are raising strawberries yet today. Everything else is gone. If you were in high school, sophomore, junior, and senior year of high school, the big thing in the fall was herring fishing. They let all us kids out of school to go herring fishing, pick fish out of the nets. We all went. We never could keep the money. It went to our mothers that helped us with Christmas presents for the family, helped us with our clothes. It was a different time. Everybody felt a part of the family. It was just there. Well, come herring fishing time, I was picking for Hermie Johnson. And I don't know if the older people probably remember Hermie Johnson. And he was married to aunt of mine, Aggie. She was at Grenville. And Hermie had a dog named Buttons. Oh, he loved that dog. He'd go on a boat with him all the time. So we were picking fish there. Right, it was 10 o'clock at night. The waves were splashing, ice all over the dock. All of a sudden, there was this big splash. Hermie Johnson said, "Oh my God!" He says, "Buttons must have fell in the lake." He ran outside. He ran outside and come back in, and somebody asked him, Franklin Basnier, somebody asked him, "Well, did Buttons fall in the lake?" No, he said it was just Aggie, his wife. He didn't even have to out of the water. He'd come back in, and all he was worrying about was his dog. But that's the way it was around here. It was very few people. But everybody got along. Families would fight. But when somebody would pass away or a hardship in any family, everybody helped them. That's the way it was. You know, there was no second thought about it. You just helped. Well, then in the 60s, after President Kennedy got shot and Johnson came in office, he started a lot of anti-poverty programs. And it was at that time that we got, the housing programs were set up, the different buildings, tribes, 638, where they could fund, ask for a lot of their own programs. BIA had to give the tribes a lot of say over the programs. And that started the sort of like an industry. It got taken away, grew too fast. Pretty soon they had all these housings, and instead of Indians living a mile and a half apart, they were living right next door to each other. They start fighting because we weren't used to living 100 homes. We had a house here 2 miles down the road. Somebody else had a house. But when they put everybody together, and we grew too fast, and that started a lot of there were no jobs at that time. But all the people came back from the cities, from other parts of the country, and moved back to Redcliffe or Bad River or Lac du Flambeau. And that was how hard times started for Indian people. Well, we went to school. We had a school at Redcliffe, and all the local kids went to Redcliffe St. Francis School. And prior to that time, in my life, there were boarding schools. And a lot of people, my family too, they went to boarding schools. And a lot of people found abuse in boarding school. I can only tell you about how it was for me. We never were abused at boarding school. In fact, the nuns saved us because they helped us. It was different for us. We didn't see that, beatings and stuff like the bigger boarding schools like Carlisle and Landrew. We never seen all of those kind of atrocities, although they're there. There was an old nun that was here for 70 years, Sister Victoria, and her brother owned oil wells in Texas, and she knew how to beg. She'd ask the nun would ask her brother to send her money, and he would. Sister Victoria took care of all of us. On Tuesday afternoon in school, they had a movie. You had to pay a nickel. We never had a nickel to go to school, go to the movie. Sister Victoria would go around. She was 90 years old by then. A whole pocket full of nickels. All the Indian kids were all sitting in the library because you didn't have a nickel to go to the movie. So she'd give us all a nickel. We all the kids got to go to the movie. Well, the nuns, I don't know if they were professional teachers, but they taught us everything that we knew. And when we got to high school, after 8th grade, we went to Bayfield High School. We were just as smart as the other kids, so they done all right with us. And so that's how it was. Everybody cared about one another. But the other thing that happened when I was young growing up is your aunt took care of you too, and your uncle. That was part of the Indian culture. I can remember as a young guy, we were poor. We lived up where on Gradam Road, on the end of it, where uh, Dave Cran has his house now. There was a driveway went up there, and that's where our little farmhouse was. And we were the only one on that road. We had to walk to school, and I should have go and measure that from David Cran's house to the school here, and just see how far that was. But probably 2 miles. I don't remember us missing school. So we must have went when it was 40 below. We must have had to walk to school that 2 miles, 2 miles home. We never missed school. And I ain't going to tell you we had to walk 2 miles uphill and both ways, but we had to walk to school. I don't remember us missing. We passed. Uh, so it was during those times that people started to wonder, what was going to happen on the road, because it was, even today there's not a lot of work. If it wasn't for the tribe, there wouldn't be any work. There's no factories here, or you got a few restaurants. If you go to Bayfield, most of that's the people working in the stores and the restaurants there, and in the island, there's still not a lot of jobs. So we're changing that. I think it's surprising to me how many people don't work. Every restaurant is looking for help. Uh, I don't know why that is. We didn't have a choice when we were young. We had to work. Everybody burned wood. We never had electricity. My dad never owned a car, so we walked all over. Everybody would go shopping on a Saturday afternoon, and starts with delivery. You put all your groceries in the back of a pickup truck and come to breakfast with them. And that's how you got your groceries, once a week. Uh, why don't you ask me some questions? Yeah, Jim.
Tell us where you were born.
I was born in Jimmy Pete's old house. My mother was, them days you had to go to Hayward. And if you were born, they took you to Hayward. Well, you know how labor is. You don't know if you're going to go to labor today. So they took you there. Some people were there for a month. It was the government hospital in Hayward. Now it's the Hayward Hospital. At that time, it was the Indian hospital. So all the Indians from around the different reservations. And that was kind of the way that they treated us at that time. All those women had to go to Hayward. But like I say, you don't know when you're going to deliver, so you stay on there for a month. But anyway, I didn't go. My mother I was born right in Jimmy Pete's old house. He tore it on a couple of years ago. And my the lady that delivered me, I think it was Bruno, Susan Bruno, was a midwife. That's where I was born, right there. And then somebody else, higher up than me lived in that house. That was Jimmy. And he was a neighbor to Teresa. But anyway, anybody have any questions you want to ask? Help me remember a little bit.
What happened to the maps that you just made?
Probably in the travel office someplace.
Really?
I can ask Joe. Maybe he might know too. But it was interesting. We showed them, and I don't know who was chairman at the time, but they asked us to help them put on a workshop at Clayton's restaurants there. So that was probably 10 years ago. But if you look at those maps, and and I think the housing gave us the housing map, and we filled in out everything else. But from going for 326 people to 1,300, big step. A lot of people.
Are there any of the original homes standing yet?
Yeah, there's a few. Franklin Bassey's house. My aunt Susie Gordner. Did you think it really Duffy's house? Duffy's house has an interesting history. When we were kids, maybe 12, 14 years old, we delivered papers. My family did. And the papers would be delivered to Redcliffe in a bundle, and it was the Duluth News Tribune at that time. And everything came to Redcliffe. It was delivered. It came to Redcliffe, drop it off at Duffy's Blue House. Everything. Everything was dropped off there. Water. We also picked for Jimmy Pete's part of school. You could tell you people shared a well. There was a well by the corner up by Perry's. There was Alec Roy had a well. There was one down by Ike's, one by Boyd's. There was a cistern over by Rabbit Roost, and all those people on that side of town had to get the water out of there. My aunt Angela, where Kenny Schmidt just moved out of, they just had a spring that just would bubble out of the ground. They cleaned it out. That's the way people get water there. Bears up where a piece of Duffy lives now. Just back up against the woods, there was another spring that would just bubble out of the ground, and they cleaned that up. And you would get there and get water. You did, when you were young. Now you're old.
A little bit.
No, but
I'm trying to catch up to him.
it was just there's probably a few more wells around, but everybody shared that. It was people were close, had to be, of course, survival. But nobody, we never knew, we never thought we were poor. Everybody was happy. Everybody was, and we didn't worry about what the other person had. If you had something to eat, you'd invite everybody else over and you'd feed them. If the next person had a big dinner, you'd invite everybody. Everybody shared fish, like Sammy Navago and Mike Navago, always dropping off fish at people's houses. They had nets and venison. Of course, there was a lot of venison around now. There ain't any, but, everybody helped everybody else out. Roy Duffy shot a moose one time. A moose come through here. He shot it and fed everybody. And, it's where it was.
Know when you stole that off from the school.
Oh, gosh. Well,
Which tongue?
Rudy on this. It was summertime. He says, Tommy, he said, you want the pop ball? Like I said, we never had no money to buy anything. I said, where the hell are we going to get pop? I know where there's something. He said, so the nuns that they would get pop truck would come to the nuns, and then they would stock up for school starting in the fall. So they had about 20 cases of orange crush. We never had something like that. Well, I said, Rudy said, I know where this pop is. We, but we went up by the convent or Jimmy Pete lives right by the whole bed there. There was lots of popcorn and Coke. So we took a bottle. We had no behind the church, and it wasn't the park wasn't there then, but we went out behind the church right, drinking that pop whole by it tasted good. He said, well, he says, we'll get another one. Went up, we took another pop. Pretty soon we went up back and get some more, and we took a whole case. Nuns come home, and right by George Journal, when you look out from the casino, you can see the highway there, They said, look at them kids down where that big cement is there. We were sitting on a drinking pop. Oh, who's that? Well, one of them took their spyglasses out. Oh, that's Tommy, Joe, and Rudy. So they got home and their papa was missing. Oh no. We didn't think that nothing. I went home and Ole, your another brother, Lawrence, right, his name is Lawrence. Sister Patrick wants to see you. Twice I put books in my pants. I knew I was going to catch hell. Pretty soon he come home. Where's that darn snot? I said, "Ooh, Kevin," he said, "You." Got a good licking. Had to pay for that pop. Right? You got to work for the nuns, and they were tough. Made us work for 2 weeks. But anything else you want me to steal?
Oh, yeah.
No, it was Rudy and I. We hung around together. Timber he was too young. He was just pestering in our way, you know. We had to do something to follow us. Then another time, Lisa come to us. He said, "Would you be my coach? Our coach? Who was with you?"
We were setting up the basketball team for Holy Family.
Oh yeah, who was with you? They come to you and somebody else.
There
right?
was Carol Bear.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
They
And
said,
we
"Would you-"
wanted a coach. We had our colors, green and white, but we needed a coach.
So they come and ask me, "Would you be our coach?" I said, I'll coach your team." So, especially, I don't know how many years after that, all over Bayfield. "Hey, coach!" Twisting around, doing jump rope and twisting around every time you see me. "Come on, ha ha, Victor!"
We thought Basil had a coach. We wanted Redcliffe to have one.
Yeah.
So we'd go, COACH, Tommy, Joe, yeah.
Right. Oh yeah, we had a good
Found
time.
them for years.
Well, then my aunt, your grandma was my aunt, and Uncle Martin, he's sailing oar boats, and Marvin Charette, that was Carolyn Charette and Kenny Charette, their dad. They were on oar boats. So they asked my older sister Kathy, if we'd babysit for them on a Saturday night. They wanted to go up and catch the oar boat in Duluth. So we said, yeah, we'd babysit. Well, we never had a TV, but they did, because their husbands had money because they were sailing an oar boat. So it was a Friday. We got up there on a Friday night. Well, we were just excited to see TV. So we turned on that TV. It was all Friday the 13th and all scary movies on that TV. And we'd watching all them. It was time to go to bed. We were scared. And wouldn't you know, it started raining and thundering and lightning and fog. And Indian people, you take the window right out of your house. You take like that window there, you take the glass right out, and you had a screen on the outside. Some maybe didn't even have a screen. But I started raining in the windows. Well, everybody take their windows out. It was too hot. They'd put them in a closet. We didn't know where they were. So we had to wake up Kenny Shred. He was, 4 years old, maybe 3 years old. Carolyn was a little younger. She didn't know where the windows were. We woke Kenny up. "Kenny, where's the windows?" He was, "I don't know." Finally, he showed us where the windows were. Put those windows back in. Just got to bed. In comes the car. 2 o'clock in the morning. Car pulls in the yard. Oh, you're already scared, watching all the old horror movies. Car come in and somebody gets out. It was the cab, Art Johnson. He brought John Patel. I don't know how many of you know Johnny Charette. Remember Johnny? Was our cousin. He was this old bachelor, and he had a kind of a cowboy hat, but it was one of those round ones like you were on like that show. Anyway, they kind of a rounded cowboy hat. He would look. And he had a little shack in the woods, no floor or nothing. Just a little log shack. Well, he's talking to himself, and we didn't know who that was. Pretty soon he fell asleep under a tree. Raining, thundering. Uncle Johnny was sleeping under that tree. Talk about scared. Next week, the boat would come back to Duluth. They'd want to go up there. We'd babysit again. Well, that's how we made a few bucks. And my Aunt Angela, she took care of us, looked out for us. But we'd walk to school from up on Bradham Road there all the way to school. We didn't even have gloves. So, people were poor. You stuck them in your pocket and went to school. She said, "Oh, you kids, you stop after school." So we'd stop after school, and she'd remember the little First World War Army coats. Yep, they had those old coats. When after the war, they give them all the reservations. Indians got all those old coats, so she'd make mittens for us out of those. But the coats were wool, made really good mittens. So on the way home, we'd stop because she had a sewing machine, and she'd make us all mittens. With those were. One of my aunts was Aunt Florence. She just died here a few years ago. And her husband they delivered mail from Bayfield to Cornucopia, and then they bring the mail back to Bayfield. And Uncle Francis, when we lived up on Bradham Road, he'd always, especially in the summertime, in the wintertime they didn't plow the road very much, so he wouldn't come up there. But in the summertime, he had, the mail job, and he farmed a little bit, and he'd bring his stuff. Oranges from the store in Bayfield, and come up that road and give us. My Aunt Florence would pick from the garden and make pie and bring it to us. That's the way we lived. They were good to us. My aunt was good to me till the day she died. I took care of her when she was sick for 15 years. But that's why I understood, and she understood where we were coming from. We didn't have lights. My dad never owned a car. Like I say, we had to haul the water. We'd cut wood in the wintertime, which seems dumb, but we had no way to haul it, And so in the wintertime, you had toboggan. So we cut our wood in the wintertime. And it seemed like we never cut a lot of wood at one time. Sometimes just every day you cut, cord of wood, it seemed like you burnt in a whole stove. And it was all popple. There was no oak where we lived, so we cut popple. So I said to myself, when I get old enough to control my life, I'm going to have goddamn wood. And people that know me,
This is
Yeah.
true.
It's
This
like,
is
yeah,
true.
I had 5 years wood in my yard when I burnt it. I probably had 25 rows, but I had to cut that wood as a kid when you had to haul it on a toboggan in the wintertime. You didn't have good mitts, you didn't have good boots, you didn't have a warm jacket like we got today. Probably had a towel over your head, but we made it.
I think for a while you were still cutting wood even though you didn't have a stove even.
Well, I used to cut it when I got Parkinson's, and my family said you gotta quit burning wood. So I still was cutting wood, got rid of the stove, and but we always had plenty of food. We always had a big garden, and we didn't have a tractor. We had you know what a spade is, and we had gardens, 2-3 gardens bigger than this place. You take your shovel, you stick it in the ground, you turn it over, and you do that whole garden, and then chop it up. You didn't have a disc, you didn't have, and then we plant our garden. And the clay around here, they call it red clay or red cliff. Well, that's what we always had. My mom canned, and we had a basement in the house, and that was full some fall. So we learned a lot. We learned respect. We learned how to work. We learned how to take care of ourselves. And the scary part for us today is everybody's on the computer. Everybody's on Facebook. All the kids got tablets. My grandkids are the same. They spend 5 hours a day, 10 hours a day. We didn't spend nothing. We talked to one another, had fun, played games, visited. always outside. Yep. Jimmy Pete, when he had working for the college, he invited myself, Gerald Perry, Chucky Mitchell, Joey Duffy,
Kevin.
Kevin, my brother Kevin, and we did it just like this at the college. And I thought, how, not that I was so great, but I thought, what can we do? So I was glad when they had Howard come here. I'm here. Jimmy Pete's going to come back. I thought, just think how much we could share with the community while our minds are still good, because it's still, our community is still the same little community. We're all related, just that we've got many more people. And you could leave, and teach and leave some of the history that made us who we are. We survived, struggled, but we made it. And nobody took away our ability to laugh and joke. I and Lloyd, you all know, most of you remember Lloyd Booth. We were the Lacta Flabo. We worked together through the alcohol program, Great Lakes in the travel. We used to go out to eat on Highway 70, a place called Yeshik's Tower. And that Bill Yeshik, he was quite a guy. We'd go out to eat, and Indians would come in there to eat, and I was all laughing and having a good time. And some of the non-Indians would come in, and they'd drink them martinis and get kind of drunk, and they start arguing. Well, he said, they don't even know what they're missing. So I said, what do you mean? He said, look at that. Here comes what shows are somebody coming in there. You know who he was. Laughing, talking, having a good time, eating. Pretty soon this other couple come in there, and they were sitting there, and they started fighting. The bartender said, what are you fighting about? He wants to buy a new car, and I don't want to get a new car. Well, we never had to worry about stuff like that because we never had the money to buy a car. So you see, everybody has their own way of thinking different than we think. Ask me some more questions.
Tell us about when you were chairman, the changes and stuff, that things that were going on or went on.
Well, there was a lot of money, a lot of money. Tribes, not only the tribes, but city of Ashland, there was a lot of job programs. We probably had 200 people working here on a job program. The federal government, gave cities, and there was a lot of money. A lot of buildings were being built. Arts and crafts, the bowling alley, travel offices, roads, 300 housing houses. A lot of 638, and then the state came in with 373 funding where tribes could take over state programs like social services. Under the federal, anything that the Bureau of Indian Affairs had, they had everything. The BIA was monitoring us. We weren't able to take care of ourselves. So in my era as tribal chairman, we were tough, because we were young and we were daring. So that's how things changed for us. It wouldn't have changed, like in the 70s, 60s. It wasn't slaves working in these fancy homes doing dishes and babysitting and cleaning that made changes for the blacks. It was when they rioted, changes started happening. They started asking for more day. Well, the same thing happened with the Indian people and the AIM movement. AIM was a radical, very influential, very outspoken Native American organization. So there was an office in Milwaukee, AIM office. So Sal Babineau and I Dick Erno, Victoria Koki went to the same office because they could help you. But we never knew how strong they were, how they operated. Well, you all remember Herb Paulus, and his brother was up in the A movement. Well, Sal come in there with us. Big guy come in there, white, long hair. You're white, get the hell out of here. Well, we never, acted like that. Sal said, I mean, so, but they were strong. But a lot of tribes got a lot of respect from that movement at that time. I went to school at Salt Lake City, well, University of Utah, and AIM came to the Mormons in Salt Lake, and he asked them for $1 million. Well, in the Mormon church, Indians is sacred people to the Mormons. Well, they didn't give him $1 million; they gave him $10 million. You know, but that's why I went to school in Salt Lake, and I asked a lot of our professors why it was. Why did they think the Indian was golden race? They still do today. Mormon people. Well, Jim asked me another question.
Yeah. Tom, what was the purpose of the coal bins at the old dock? How was that like run down there?
No, that was part of the Big Smiths.
Yeah.
No, they were for furnaces, steam. They ran the mill.
Because when we were younger, then we would play in those.
Yeah,
They
right,
weren't even
yeah.
operating then, but I wondered what they were and what they were for.
They had a big steam furnace on there, and they made steam, and that's what ran the mill.
Oh, okay.
And there was right where the old casino is, and our old house was there. There was a called Sweet Town, and the person who I got a tape from, or a CD from Bernie Lapointe. He made it, and part of it is in Chautauqua at Riding the Wind. When he says, when he was 14 years old, he worked at the record mill. His dad, got killed there. Then he went to work with his dad's place. And there was a Swede town. And the old house that we lived in, if you went around the back of it, there was like 21 on the top of the door. And it was just like living in the city. They had all these houses were numbered. Well, when the steel mill or the sawmill closed, we just left all the houses. We just, went out, left them. And our house was one of those, was in the original place. But that old house that sat by Sal Babineau, Maine, the old house they just tore down, that came from Sweet Town. And it was the same as our house, except it was turned. But when they moved it up there, it was turned. But there was houses there, they had board sidewalk. It was called Sweet Town. And Ernie Lapointe talks about that. In the mill, when the lumber companies were here, you worked for the lumber company, you could live in that house. His dad got killed working in the mill. He was catching off, lumber was coming out, slabs and lumber were coming out. And he got caught between a table in the back of him and in front of him and cut him right in half. Bernie Lapointe's dad. After they buried their dad, the lumber company kicked him out of the house. So they had to move to Baker. And Ernie talks about all of that. The mills were terrible. When they cut all the pine and fed Minneapolis and Chicago and Milwaukee. And when they were done cutting, they just torched and burnt everything. They didn't care if you burnt out. Indian people burnt out. They just torched everything, slashed things, and moved away. It was a different time.
What year was that? Approximately.
Probably 1903. I think Ernie's dad got, But I got the CD from Ernie. He talked all about that.
Ernie,
Your point.
When we were growing up, George and Carmen Gurno had a little store in their house. How was that there?
Okay, they had a big house. Your daughter was moved to Superior. George was kind of well, Joey Duffy was Joey's uncle. But when we met at that time with you, he said, "Oh, my uncle George, he was kind of a shyster, kind of tight." So they'd go to Superior or go wherever, and they'd buy these, have fire sale candy, buy up all this candy and bring it to Richard and sell it to us. Fire sale. Well, how you got to buy the candy? We lived next door to him, and if we got a penny, all because we were rich. Knock on the big door in the back and knock on that door, and his wife was kind of curled up. She'd come with a crutch, and you could hear her walking across from the kitchen to the living room, and about 6 locks on that door. All through them locks, go in there, and they had a candy counter. And he has those little leaf, peppermint leaf, kind of soft, 2 for a penny. I want 4 of them. We only had 2 cents. She'd come open that door. You'd buy that 2 cents of the candy. And she'd do the same thing, going back out here, click, click, click. 2 cents, And if you had a nickel, well, and how we got the 2 cents, Pitt would take pop bottles and egg cartons. He'd give you a penny piece. So you take up the Pitt store there. But Pitt LaPointe was a banker for Richmond. Took care of everybody. Lent everybody money.
too, along with when Jim's asking that question, wasn't it if we got to go down, we went down the creek, we got those, what were those
Penny bugs.
those penny bugs.
Oh yeah.
We could bring those penny bugs up there, we could exchange those for candy. I was looking up penny bugs the other day to find a penny bug because I was thinking about that. I don't see them anymore.
No, I never see him either.
Yeah,
But maybe we're not looking,
possibly.
But we were all outside. We're all at Chicago Creek or Rejoicing Creek or Falls Creek up, past your house. Maybe we're not out there no more. Part of our change.
How long did you live? Do you remember how long you lived in the house? You guys just had a beautiful house. You had a beautiful house.
There was an old house there first.
Okay.
And we lived in there. Our old house had a roof always a leak. We never had a ladder to go up on the roof and fix it. So we just let it leak. It was a tough time. And we lived there. We moved there in '59. And prior to that, we lived up where on Gradham Road, lived in Jimmy Peaceful House. That's where I was born. But we had a good life.
Who was your best friends at that time?
Donnie Sullivan.
Okay. Oh, no. All right.
Yeah, and the reason Donnie Sullivan was they lived up past us, right where the town garage is, right where Donnie lives now. There were farmers right there, and then at the end stuff, we go there. Pretty much you stayed home. People come to your house. You went to your grandma and your mom. We used to stop there. Mrs. Harris stall. You remember the stalls? They lived in that log cabin where Mike Schultz lived. Yeah. And Diane and Robbie, Ricky Pemberg,
When you used to walk up to Pitts, there was that one place that they called Bella's.
Yep.
Who was that?
Bella Warner, she was had a nice place there. She owned it. It's right where Wilfred Peterson was there, and now one of his grandkids are there. But there used to be where they just dug up, where they fixed that water leak. It was green steps went up there. And people would sit on those steps because you could see up the road both ways. People would sit there. You'd also sit by Gladys. That's where the drinking spot was. People would sit on the side of the road. Billy Biggs and John Surratt, Mike Nawago, whoever was drinking that time, would sit and watch everybody go by. Entertainment, river.
Uncle John Patty.
I was just telling him about him. John Pat was married to my dad and Auntie Anne's sister Mary, and she died young, and so then he got just to drink, and he played mandolin, good mandolin, he was a good mandolin player. But all he did was drink, and Auntie Anne's that finally took him by her, and he built a little house, but there's no wood floor or nothing. And he was pretty rugged looking. Everybody was kind of young kids would be afraid of him because he had that big hat on.
Yes, I was going to ask you about his hat.
Yeah, he had that big kind of, it was a cowboy hat, but it was kind of round like that.
Like a derby with the big rim around it.
Like that Mr. Edwards on Little House on the Prairie.
Yeah,
That
yeah.
kind of a hat.
Yeah.
And but he was harmless. And he'd go to the store every day and come home with a bottle of wine, or muscatel, up the pits. Oh, I gotta tell you this story. You all know Josephine, that's Tina Peterson's mother, was Josephine Falcon. So Josephine died, and you all know Aki Smith from Superior. They were good friends, so Josephine was my wife and Lauren's aunt, Mosey's sister, Connie. She passed away. So I and Linda went to they didn't have a big funeral, but they cremated her, and they were going to spread her ashes at the cemetery in Richmond. So Aki came down from Superior, and we didn't wait. I think we went up to the elderly first and ate dinner and spread her ashes. Aki was comical. Oh, she says, my friend Josephine. Oh, I'm going to miss him. Well, she started talking about when they were young. And Josephine Basney's husband was Falcon. He worked on that out in Michigan, that boat that hauls cars across the straits there. Mackinac worked there. That's what he did. He's gone all the time on that boat. So Josephine and Aki did start drinking. So finally, Pitt had a store. Like I say, Pitt did everything. Everybody went to Pitt's, charged everything up, borrowed money from him. He was a banker. So this Josephine's husband, Falcon, was working on the boats, and he come home and he said to his Pitt, he says, my wife could have cigarettes, kerosene for the lamp, any kind of groceries she wants, but no beer. Well, Pitt said, well, what am I supposed to do? He said, if you sell her beer, it shows up on that slip when I come home from the boats, I'm not paying the bill. So Aki comes down to visit Josephine, and go up there, Indian people start partying a little bit. Pretty soon, Josephine, she was tough too. She says, Aki, take me down to the pits. I'm going to go and get a case of beer. So Aki said, Josephine, you know what your husband said? He's not going to pay for that bill. That's not me. So they go to Pitts. And, Pitt he was pretty outspoken. He did, Pitt, I want a case of beer. I can't give you a case of beer. Why not? Well, you know what your husband said, he won't pay for it. Well, pay the bill. So she says, Pitt said to her, what the hell am I supposed to put on that bill? Put on 100 pounds of potatoes. Okay, he said, take a piece of beer and go back home. Oh, pretty soon Billy Big start coming there and Manny Daly, you know, they would, pretty soon the whole house will take that case or two up. Josephine said, take me back down to the pits. I'm going to get another case of beer that Sunday. So she goes down to this tavern or pit store. Argue with him and get another case of beer. Josephine, he says, I won't get paid. Well, he says, she said to him, put down 100 pounds of onions. Pitt looked at her and says, Jesus. He says, I can understand somebody eating 100 pounds of potatoes, but who the hell is going to eat 100 pounds of onions? So she tells that story, and but they were, you know, good friends.
Sawmill behind Pitts. What was with the sawmill back there?
That was what do they call that place now? Roy's Point.
Yeah,
You know.
yeah.
There was one there, and there was one right where that big cement thing is behind the casino there. And then there was one at Pikes, one in Bayfield.
Okay. So Pitt had a sawmill back behind his house?
No, that was Eli's
That was
brother
Eli.
Eli.
Okay.
That was just a small one though.
Yeah.
And your grandpa had one too.
Used to go back there and play. We
Yeah.
used to play back there.
Yeah. I think that was part of that Roy's Point mill. They stored lumber up there. Yeah. Lisa, you got any?
I do. The funerals back then. What was that like?
They used to fix you at home. You know.
You mean like the women?
Yeah. Well, no, the undertaker would come to your house and fix you up. The first person I ever seen it was Marion Gordon. She had epilepsy. You know, Billy Weeks' sister, Auntie Susie. That's the first person I seen that was dead. But they'd fix you at home. You know.
Did they have fires for them back then here?
No. Maybe a long time before my time, but I think Rose Aid, you all remember her? It was your aunt or grandma.
My grandma.
Yeah, she used to have. They would take people there to her house, and they had drums. But you know, Retros lost a lot of their history. You know, it was the kids today know more Chippewa and culture than I do because they teach it now. You know, we lost all that.
Yeah, I'm from Bad River, and your history is very similar to ours.
Mhm.
Your whole story of growing up in,
Yeah.
how same thing with the funerals. A lot of them were at home. We didn't have fires. A lot of the stuff was the same, and you know, we didn't. One thing that you said and we talked about was back then we didn't know what we were poor.
No, nobody knew. We had enough
we had
to eat.
food, we had a roof over our house. We had clothes.
Mm-hmm. That's all you need. We weren't worrying about TV. The first TV here was Alan Beer's dad and Rabbit and Roseanne. You know, because Gerald talked about it when we met here a couple of years ago. And Gerald said, you know, Roseanne would have had a TV because Johnny worked at the boats. And they'd watch all those cartoons in the morning. And Saturday morning, he said you could just see from looking out, his auntie was there. Here comes all the kids, all of the Prairie boys, walking up the road to watch their TV because the cartoons come on there. But the old TVs would jump. Yeah.
Nowadays you said everybody's got phones and this and that. I remember back in the day they talked about visiting on New Year's.
Oh yeah. Oh,
What was that like? What was that all about?
like Halloween. It was New Year's.
I remember that too. Yeah.
Yep. It was just like Halloween. You get a gunny sack or a pillowcase. You go to everybody's home and they'd give you. Only thing it was not candy. They'd give you cookies or apples or pie. As you got a little older, they'd offer you a shot of whiskey or wine, and you'd go all day.
So would everybody go from house to house?
Also, I suppose some people stayed home because you had, if you went there, they cook. Dozy, we all know Dozy. She always made hominy soup. Every New Year's, you go to Dozy's house and you had hominy soup. I went up to Chucky Kratz, 15 years ago. And of course, nobody does that anymore. And I went to their house, and Larry was still alive, Larry Kratz. Happy New Year to him. He said, "You want something to eat?" I said, "Yeah." Kidding, I said, "I want raisin pie." Of course, she went in the kitchen, she came over raisin pie. But everybody had, they still would do that, but everybody went. And the older you got, the later in the day you went, so come 10 o'clock at night, the only one that would come around our house was Tunny. Yeah, he's a good old guy.
What about any other holidays? How they differ nowadays? Do people, like now we go Halloween trick or treating. We have
Yeah, they
costumes
did
and all
that,
stuff,
but
and everybody.
like you didn't go like you do now because the houses were so far apart. You ain't gonna walk 2 miles in the dark, So
Did
we
they turn over the outhouses?
well, they turned over the outhouses and they would put a Model A on top of the fire hall in town. Yeah. And it had a lot of, a little bit different.
Well, you mentioned about TVs, and one story Betsy Hudson has when up on Pagan Hill, the only one that had a TV was Emily and Frank DePaul. She said you could see it outside. She said her and Marlene would be hiding out there watching TV so they wouldn't get caught.
Yeah, there were no TVs around. But we made it, and I think the families we should try to get back to that, and get away from all the computers. And all those things are good, but our kids today overdo that. You're just not. It can't be good for us. You can't be out there all the time. You gotta education is by doing stuff. And as adults, as elderly and older people, as we get older, we can just take a look at what do we need in our community to stay here. And now that I'm getting older, 78, we need housing for older people. I can't stay in my house because I got my bathrooms upstairs. I sleep upstairs. When I can't go up the steps anymore, I'm done. If I ever have a stroke, or so I'm going to have to move. So we should be pressing for change with our tribe to take care of us. I couldn't afford to pay, but there's no place to rent. You could have all the money in the world, and still there's no place to live. We should be forcing the people that are in power, all of us, to make those changes now, so that when we need them, they're there. Our kids, the kids, we need more things for kids to do. I went out the last couple of years to camp at Raspberry. Wonderful, wonderful thing. We should do more of it. I think this place right here is good for the kids. The youth center is good for the kids, but they got nobody to help them. You got no money to hire anybody. You can't just put 25 kids in the community, all of them run around. They got to have a structure. Well, there's no money to hire anybody. We should change. We got to change our thinking that way. Our school. We got to make the school be responsive to the needs of the community too. And our council needs to. I think they try hard, but we got to be part of that. We got to drive the change. I'm not trying to be a hellraiser or nothing. I was when I was young and I had a lot of energy. you lose some of that, in the last 20 years. You lose that as you get older. But I think it's needed, and there's so many good people there.
A long time ago, Tom, when we had the NYC program,
Mm-hmm.
they would send, like the boys would be up to the graveyard with the sickles, cutting the grass and keeping up with that. Us young girls, we were assigned to elders' homes like
Yep.
Blanche and Hank, your mom's,
Mm-hmm.
Auntie Audrey's, Grandma Roy's. Us girls would go into the homes and do their dishes, sweep their floors, and part of that was learning the respect for those,
Yeah.
you had to. You couldn't question them.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, because they were strict.
Yeah.
So, and then of course, then you'd get it from like my grandma Fox. You go in there and do what you got to do, and you help them people.
Mm-hmm.
So I seen more of with our generation. We were still instilled with that. Make sure the respect, the help.
Yeah.
It's different. There's something's missing with this generation that's coming up. That respect is not there anymore. People don't take care of one another like they used to anymore. Or, we're all supposed to look after one another's kids, but you got it where if this kid's fighting this kid, then this mom's saying, well, it's not my kid. And they don't want to listen to the problems, and they don't know how to communicate anymore. And it's the caring is not there. There's something's missing.
I think when we were young, Teresa, a lot of grandmas took care of their grandkids, but the parents had to work. Now, kids, girls and boys, are having children when they're so young that grandmas aren't. You were a grandma how long ago? I was a grandma. You know what I mean? Grandma Roy, she took care of a lot of kids. She would be strict. Your grandma Big or Morris, he was strict.
Yeah.
Just the way it was. Now the grandmas today are 40 years old.
Yeah.
Our grandmas were 70 and 80.
And my kids grew up with 6 grandmothers.
Yeah.
These kids grow up with 1 or 2. They don't have that because the grandmothers are dying off younger and younger.
Mm-hmm.
The
And I think
the health.
the other big thing is in our society today, not only here, is drugs. It's changing our ability to think. And part of that is hope, losing hope. And that's another thing that we as adults, older people, we can change. Kids got to feel that there's something going to be here for them. And they don't feel that. They feel abandoned by society. And we can change that too. We just
Another part of this is okay, looking here and I see Teresa, Carol, and myself, how we're taking care of our grandkids, but then there's great grandparents that are now also taking care of kids because of the choices of those parents and the way they make their choices. So here's great grandparents now, taking care of little bitty kids.
Mm-hmm. And it's hard.
It's hard keeping up with the little ones when you're way up there in age.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But it's kind of trying to keep that family unit together.
I and Linda have probably 6 to 9 grandkids Friday and Saturday all the time. And although it's tough on us, I miss it when they go home, and they all get along, But every Friday we cook a meal for them Friday night, breakfast, Saturday morning, and lunch, and then their parents come and get them. A lot of times, Stacy and Lauren's little boy comes, and his 3 kids come, and Leah's 5. We wouldn't have it no other way. It's hard, but we got a big house. We love it. Anybody else? Anybody on the phone there have anything you wanna?
I just wanted to add to your last comment, and we'd love to do it. Take care of our grandkids,
Yeah,
don't we? We
oh, yeah,
love to
we
do
got
it.
it.
They go home, and then we're just lonesome.
Yep.
Hi, TJ. This is Stephanie.
Hey, Steph.
I've heard many stories of yours, but can you kind of? I mean, I love your tribal council stories back in the day.
the
Can
only-
you kind of tell how it was when you were on council, when there wasn't really offices or anything like that available to the council members?
we used to have, I had, some of you older people remember that old cap office. It was just a little office. It was a big travel offices now, or the first one they had, down from the travel courthouse. It was just, they kept the ambulance underneath in the basement, top of the room, but wasn't in the kitchen, but see right here. That was the travel office. Joyce Livingston was the cap coordinator. That a lot of money came to the community action program. They call it CAP, and she was the coordinator of that. We had our office upstairs and the ambulance was downstairs. That was the extent of infrastructure for tribal government. We used to go to Washington a lot. I did, and I suppose they still do. I'm just not aware of it. But Cecil Peterson, Dick Gerdo, Leo Lafreniere, Doc, we all end up in Washington. So I got to be chairman, and Pat Hewitt was vice chairman, and Laurie Guth was working for us. You all remember, most of you remember Laurie, good guy. Went to Washington, testified before Congress on appropriations. The day we were going was the day that Reagan got shot. So we got to Washington, got a cab, and went to our hotel, Carlton Hotel, downtown Washington. And we couldn't get to our room because the guy that shot Reagan had stayed in that hotel. So they had us locked out. They were checking all those rooms, the FBI and the CIA, everybody. So we went, finally we got in our room. But now, most of the time you'd go to either HUD or the BIA. And there were big offices. BIA probably had 2,000 people, working there. We did all our business. We were trying to get law enforcement funding. So the assistant secretary for Virginia, his name was Suarez. Winnebago, but they always were from New Mexico or someplace or whatever. Kind of anything. So we went and talked to the Secretary of Interior. He told us to go. He set us up an appointment with this Suarez. So we go down another floor and we meet this guy by big fancy office, big cowboy hat on. He says, "What do you want?" Well, we said, "We need law enforcement funding. We got a lot of problems on the reservation. Many more people, and the county doesn't serve us." Press the button, and one of his aides come in. "How many squad cars we got going to Red Lake?" He said, 12. Sir, I just sent him 6. He said, "Send 6 direct." I cowboy boots on, Oh, we're going to get everything. We got out of there, got back home, telegram from, we're sorry, you're a non-280 state. You're under the county. We can't send you nothing. After you got all the way home. Well, anyway, on the way home, Laurie Goose, Pat Hughes, and I were flying into Minneapolis. We got to the airport. Of course, you didn't have all the restrictions that they got now. Pat Hughes, her, she had to go to the bathroom. She got the bathroom while they were boarding our plane. So Laurie Goose said, "Tommy, where's Patsy Hughes?" I said she had to go to the bathroom. Well, he says, I can't leave. Well, I said, I'm leaving her. I'm going to Minneapolis. I've been here long enough. So I boarded the plane. No Pat. Lori said, well, I got to go back and find her. So he went out. Poor Lori was a big guy.
Yeah.
Anyway, he went out to look for Pat. And I got on the plane and like we were taxiing out, ready to take off. I said, well, what the hell are we going to do, you know? So pretty soon, looking at squad cars coming out of the airport. I got to get on that plane. Well, it wasn't all of the stuff like it is now with security. Here comes a squad car. That dude was on it. Well, now Lori's looking for her in the airport. He's still ain't on it. Comes down, his squad car comes and stops right in front of our plane. Open up. By now, the people on the plane are saying, "Oh, I'm going to miss my flight to Minneapolis. Damn it!" You know, I was sitting listening to all that stuff. Pretty soon, Lori comes in. They open the door. She comes in. TJ, where's Lori? I said, Lori, who? I said, who the hell are you? I don't know who you are. 'Cause I didn't want the people to beat me up. So I come to Minneapolis and I had to sit there and wait to come home because Lori was on a different plane. 2 hours later. But we had, with good experiences out there. We got to know a guy by the name of Roy Sampson. He was from Warm Springs, Oregon. Roy was Assistant Secretary for the Bureau of Indian Affairs under Jim Watt when Reagan first got in. And Jim Watt was the Secretary of Interior, but Roy Sampson, Indian guy. And we got to be friends with him. And when we'd go to Washington after that, we'd call up his office. He'd come to the airport with a limousine, pick us up, drop us where we were going to go, tell us who to see. Now, you'd think you'd go see Obi or our representative or Bob Cass. He sent us to South Dakota representative. And he told us why. These guys would do something. We got, fishing money, we got law enforcement money, we got fisheries, housing. Why do that? Let's see, once you make that connection. All of a sudden, this guy is gone. We call up Warm Springs, Oregon. What happened to him? When he would have to testify as being Assistant Secretary for Interior, he'd have to lie to Congress. As an Indian, I couldn't lie. I had to tell Congress that everything is good, the tribes didn't need this funding. I couldn't do that. It wasn't really the way it was. They'd come from the president's office on down and tell him what he had to do. He left. Ada Deer, a lot of you probably know Ada Deer from Menominee. She was Assistant Secretary. Did the same thing. I couldn't help with tribes because they would just, they'd tell me what to say when it got, how bad things were on reservations and the health care. I couldn't tell them all that. Well, you see, our great white father is supposed to be taking care of tribes. That's what we got to fight for. Yeah.
No.
Anybody else have any questions?
One more for you. Back in the day when you were first on tribal council, how were the council members? What did they get for compensation, and how was that?
About 20,000 a meeting. I think we got $5 a meeting. I think, and then it finally went. I suppose now they get a couple of $100 a meeting, but I don't know that. I've been on there for so long. You don't ever take any of those kind of jobs to get rich, but I believe they should get, something, especially if they work hard. But I don't know what that is.
Well, I was going to ask what it was like then compared to now. When I go in the health center myself, I'm just amazed at the health care that's provided and what's there available to us. But I remember in growing up that, we didn't have a clinic and we didn't have local services. We had to go to Washburn or Ashland And I was thinking about George Gurnall again, that he was one that would drive us. Remember one time there was Carolyn and I and all, a whole bunch of Indian kids in there that he was taken over to Ashland to go to the dentist. So there'd be 6 or 8 of us and they're going over there, get our dental care when we come back. The elders at the time, if they were diabetic, I would remember hearing like Carrie Nwagwa and them talk about how they had the fast, because they have to go over to Washington for their blood sugar, and get that once a month. After that, when they go over to the restaurant and have like bacon grease and all of that and stuff.
That's what we're supposed to have.
But any like what it was like then and then kind of compared to now.
The school, the same thing. George Gurnall. I don't know what the younger. Of course, we all went to Redcliffe School, Catholic school. But the kids, when you got to the 9th grade, you had to go to Bayfield School. George Gurnall, they wouldn't put them Indian kids on the same bus with the non-Indians. So George Gurnall would take people to school, like Philip and your dad. He'd take 2 or 3 loads every morning of the kids that were in high school, drive his own car, and BIA paid him to haul those kids. I think healthcare used to be the old Dr. Merrill, right? Just shaking. So the nuns would send us down to their little office there, but when we go into the park, there was a 2-room office. The doctor would come from Ashland and be Indian Health Service doctor. Right, 90 years old. Kids all come with big needle. IHS or BIA funding there, so get over there. Kids would all be crying, nobody want to get a shot for a big needle. That fell. That's the kind of services that we had, what I mean. Then they had in the Redcliffe school there was a petition there, 2 rooms in there in the kitchen. And the doctor would come there and they'd have, I suppose, 5-gallon jugs of cough syrup, pills in a big bottle. And there was just certain things, and they had cases of these little small bottles, and they'd fill them up for cough syrup. But, you had to go to Ashland for a dentist, you had to go for eyes. Winter pills, used to get winter pills. I think everybody probably did, if you're older, with goiter. Lice. Dad never with your hat like that, the nuns would come around. That lice, whatever kind of stuff they had to kill. But like I say, the nuns were good to us. We didn't have the things that my parents might have had, our aunties and grandmas at boarding school. We never had that. They took care of us. And, so we didn't have that trauma. And I think the biggest trauma that we had that I felt was going on to high school. Because you went to school on a reservation, Catholic school, then you had to leave all that when you got to 9th grade and go to high school. And that's why so many Indian kids dropped out of school, that changed. It was even like the housing. If you lived, can I say a teepee or an old house, all of a sudden you got this brand new house with a high-tech furnace. You don't even know how to take care of that. Indian people were just forced into those homes. In our time, we never had that kind of stuff. We lived in old, poor houses, windows all cracked and broken. So it was traumatic. We made it. I appreciate where I am today. And I think it's up to us to help our kids that are struggling with drugs. We can do it. You just got to make up our mind. I mean, because there are good kids in our community. We all know that. Good kids coming up.
Hi, TJ. This is Stephanie again.
Oh, yeah.
How was your transfer from the Red Cliff School to the high school? How was that different? I mean, I can imagine the racial, instances and all that other stuff, but how was that?
Well, it was different because when you're in Catholic school, you stayed in one room. You got to high school, you went to one class, and then you had to go downstairs to a different class. They had food, they fed you at noon. We never had none of that at the Catholic school. But I think other than, I always got along good, my kids did in high school. But if you weren't able to cope, you struggled. And there was nobody there to help you when I started high school. And I think I made it because my parents almost, I couldn't come home and say I got in trouble in school because my dad would get in trouble at home. That worked for me and that worked for my kids. So I didn't have the problems that if you came home and your parents weren't home, or some people, husband and wife, both had to work, and especially today. And then we've got casinos and gambling. Kids are raising themselves. That is going to affect. And that's the biggest part. Society today makes it such that it takes all those individuals to keep their family going. And we lose on the other end. That's simple as that. But no, high school was good for me. There was priceless. White girls were nice to me. I did well in school, but I had to work hard for that. Anything else you want? Oh, Linda, you better.
Well,
Listen now, Tom, you better tell the truth about high school.
Yeah.
How many times were you in the principal's office?
Yeah. Oh, well, I kind of tell this as a joke, but
you're in trouble now.
when I got to school, high school, Don Anderson come there first year, 1960. So his office was on the second floor, and there was Mrs. LaPointe was the secretary all through school. There was two desks. This was the door going in his office. There was a chair over there. There was a chair over here. And I was kind of wise ass, I suppose. I was always getting sent down to see the superintendent. So I was always sitting in that chair over there, quite a bit of the time. This was over here was empty. So one day, third graders, they walk by, they got to eat first. This little girl said, "Look at me." She said, "There's Mr. Anderson." Me. I thought, what the heck? She take on the superintendent while I was sitting there more than the superintendent. More than the superintendent was, so I straightened right out. No, but we had good times in high school, bad times. Alan Bear, Ben Top, young Ben, Kenny Johnson, Larry Weber, me home grew. Kids, senior years. So we thought we got to get a couple hundred bottles, and where are we going to find that many bottles? So we went up on Lamper Hill. We all know where Lamper Hill was. Then we went to Lamper Hill in the spring and washed bottles. Well, everybody drank up there. Right, there was hundreds of bottles down town here. Outside the street, we took all those bottles and we bottled up everything. And Art Glazin was our brewmaster. Dave Glazin's cousin. He's come from California. He had grown up in New York. He taught how to make beer. His mother had a northern or eastern accent. Aha, she said, what are you doing? We're making pop, Mama. Like she was making it in the basement. She didn't even know. So we had all those bottles. Well, in the spring is melting season. Well, after high school, come on and go smelting tank. We went out to the river flats there and started smelting. Went to Art's old house in the basement to pick up our beer, and as we bought it too soon, all the bottles busted. So we had maybe case beer up. You'd open that, place would just squirt out, and you'd take it big, and we bottled it green, you know. But never got caught. All there was basketball, you know, when we started school. There wasn't all this stuff they got now. And the girls did have nothing, which was kind of funny, you know. But that was the thinking in them days. Mariel Erickson was the first Catholic woman to work at a school. And C.T. Larson, when she got hired, the school board hired her to teach. And she's still alive today. The principal, or C.T. Larson, the old time principal there for 100 years, he went up to her and he said, and no pregnancies. Told her that, you know, don't you get pregnant. Well, she had 8 kids. But that was the thinking. They wanted all Lutherans, you know. At that time, the Catholics and the Lutherans basically didn't get along. And he told her no pregnancies. But she had 8 kids. But that's the way it was. Those days, the education system was terrible.
What did they have then? They had the Bayfield School and the Catholic school. How did the people figure out who went where? And
Well, you granted then we went to this Catholic school out here, and then the last of my 8th grade year, half year, we ended up in Bayfield School, the Catholic school, because they closed Redcliffe at that time. We ended up in Bayfield, and Alec Vandervenner, we had a 1948 bus. You know, 30 years old. Alec Vandervenner was the driver of that old bus. It broke my break down, we'd be walking to school. But we made it. Well, anyway, thanks to you guys on the computer. I enjoyed it. I care about the people here, and I care about this area we live in. I wish I was younger. I could force some of these changes, but I'm not. I'm old. But I ain't dying tomorrow. Next day. And thank all of you too.
Tom, you're an inspiration, Tom.
Pardon?
You are an inspiration.
Thanks, Fred. So are you.
Thanks, Tom.
Yep, you're welcome. Thank you guys on the computer or on the Facebook, whatever it is.
Thanks, TJ. Have a good night.
Thanks, Steph. Yeah, you too.
Oh, bye.
Yeah.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank
Go right
you.
home. I'll be home in a little bit, buddy.
Yeah, you come right home. No.
Yeah. Thank you guys here too. Hey, Jen, how are you? Pete was on here. Hey, there's food back there too.
Thanks, Tommy.
Hey, Ken.
Hey, Tommy, thank you.
Thank you. I enjoyed it.
I did too. You were wonderful.
Well, if I wasn't so shaky with Parkinson's, I could have done better. You should have had me do this 20 years ago.
Tell them we don't want to have any ground bologna sandwiches home.
Where's he gone?
And we went to bed.
And stop at the casino.
I was there.
What they got for that chicken?
Would be.
There's a couple more.
Oh, Jimmy Rich. That's what kind of bowl it is. My cousin made that. It's cherry black walnut. It's Connie Bassey's granddaughter. So
Did Norm die?
yeah, years ago.
He stopped here. He used to stop with the Connie.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you.